Clerk, I have 6:45. Are we ready to go?
Yes, we are, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. This will be the Oxnard City Council Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Development Committee meeting. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:45. And Madam Clerk, if we can have a roll call and posting of the agenda, please.
Yes. Chair McDonald,
Here.
Member Madrigal,
Here.
Member Zaragoza.
Here.
Thank you. The agenda for this meeting was posted in the kiosk located outside council chambers on September 17th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And if everyone would rise and join me in saluting the flag of our nation. You place your hand over your heart and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Okay, Madam Clerk, I don't have any public comments under section B. Is that still correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, that will take us to item C, consent agenda. And we have approval of the minutes from June 22nd and July 13th of 2021. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Move approval.
Before I say second, I think there was some issues with the interpretation of this meeting. If you look at the chat section.
Okay.
Okay, do you want to amend them then?
No. I'm talking about this meeting. Before we move on, I think they're having issues with interpretation. There's
Okay.
some technical issues.
Okay, well, hopefully we can get that sorted out because on D4, we're going to need a lot of interpreter help. Ms. Golden, do you have any information on that?
I'm not able to see the chat from where I am. We'll have Diego check on that.
I will check on that. Give me just 1 second.
This is Moira, one of the interpreters. Hello.
Yes, Moira. Can you
Hi.
hear us okay?
I can hear you perfectly. Lourdes needs to be added as a panelist. Right now, she appears as translation services. And also, if you can enable the interpreting mode so people can choose the correct channel, English or Spanish, that way we'll both be able to do the interpretation for this session. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, Councilmember, are you okay with that explanation?
Just one moment.
Yes, but we should
Yes.
wait for
Give me just 1
services to be
second.
available.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving forward, we have a motion and a second on the approval of the minutes. We have a roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
One moment, please, Chair.
Chair McDonald, we need to get the other translator in before we take the action so the
Thank you.
those meeting from the public can understand and select the language they'd like.
Okay, so
And you'll be able to see the translation button show up at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Then we'll know that it's launched.
okay. So how long do you want us to wait then?
Just another moment.
Okay, and Madam Clerk, are we recording this meeting? Because it doesn't look like it's being recorded.
Not yet.
We're going to start recording this meeting in just one moment.
Recording in progress.
Thank you for your patience, Chair McDonald. We are ready to go.
Before we move on, City Clerk, do we need to go back to do the opening and roll call, or is that recorded somewhere that we'll have that in the?
I was
Okay.
gonna Do the roll call and the posting again, so it's on the recorded version. We don't have to do the twice.
So
We-
Diego's indicating that we do have that recorded, so we'll just kick off then from the minutes section. If we can have the motion and second for the minutes.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Mayor Zaragoza, and the second was by Councilmember Madrigal.
Yeah, second.
Roll call, please.
Chair McDonald,
Aye.
Member Madrigal,
Aye.
Member Zaragoza.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, thank you very much. That takes us to item D1, increase in reward funds for unsolved homicide cases. And the request is that the community.
Can you text me the information? I'm in a meeting, Zoom meeting right now. Just text me the info.
Hopefully that wasn't directed at me.
Yeah.
We'll start all over again. That the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Development Committee receive a report on the increase of reward funds and for unsolved homicide cases. And pursuant to Measure M, their pre-recorded PowerPoint presentation was available for review on the city's YouTube channel. And there will not be any staff presentation tonight. The staff is available to answer any committee questions or concerns, should there be any. Do the committee members have any questions or concerns?
No. Move approval.
Second.
Mhm.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we have a motion for approval and a second. Roll call, please.
Member Zaragoza,
Yes.
Member Madrigal,
Aye.
Chair McDonald.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, that takes us to item D2, sale of Oxnard Community Development Commission successor agency on property to the Housing Authority. And I understand that there might be some slight wording changes here. So I'm going to ask Mr. Rozelle to read the updated sections, or maybe Mr. Smith. I just see him show up. One of the two of you, if you can read the updated wording for me, because I don't have it.
Certainly, Chair. The updated wording, we're updating a few items on the second recommendation. We're replacing the term governing board of the Oxnard Housing Authority to the Board of Commissioners of the Oxnard Housing Authority. Additionally, we're also updating the recommendation to state that the Oxnard Housing Authority will also conduct a public hearing in addition to adopting the resolution. And then lastly, on the purchase and sale agreement, which is attached to the staff report, section 6 is going to be updated where we're replacing the term executive director with housing director. And that will be updated for the city council meeting when we have those public hearings.
Okay, other than that, all the original wording remains the same then, sir?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, pursuant to Measure M, the pre-recorded PowerPoint presentation was available for review on the city's YouTube channel. There won't be any presentation tonight, but staff is available to answer any committee questions or concerns. If committee members have any comments, questions, concerns for staff?
No, Mr. Chair, I move approval with the amendments that were shared by staff.
I'm sorry, Mayor, you're gonna have to pull that mic a little bit closer to you. I think you approve approval with the amendments. Is that correct?
Approval, I'd like to have approval of the agenda item with the amendments that were shared by staff.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
Okay.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second, and a motion with the amended language and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Member Madrigal,
Aye.
Member Zaragoza,
Aye.
Chair McDonald.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. That takes us to item D3, Trade Services Agreement with Professional Security Consultants, PSC, close parens, for downtown security services. And the request is that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Development Committee recommend that City Council approve and authorize the mayor to execute a 4 year agreement, contract number A Adam 8370 for security services in the Central Business District, the Oxnard Public Library, and the Oxnard Service Center with professional security consultants, PSC, in the amount not to exceed $1,260,000. And again, pursuant to Measure M, a pre-recorded PowerPoint presentation was available for viewing on the city's YouTube channel. There will not be a staff presentation. The staff is available should the committee members have any questions or concerns on this item. Do the members have any questions or comments for staff?
No.
No? Okay, and a motion would be in order then?
So moved.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. A roll call, please.
Chair McDonald,
Yes.
Member Madrigal,
Aye.
Member Zaragoza.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, this takes us to item D4, and this might be a little bit of a lengthy one, but it's a review of rent control and tenant protection strategies. And the request is that the Housing and Economic Development Committee conduct a study session on rent control and tenant protection strategies. And for the record, I'm showing the following correspondence or communication with the committee. One, correspondence from Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles regarding this matter. A slide presentation from CAUSE, Housing Affordability and Tenant Protections for Oxnard Renters. A 92-page petition for rent control submitted by CAUSE, and a 1,890-page petition submitted by CAUSE. Also, we're in receipt of an email from Mr. Max Genis, G-H-E-N-I-S, an email from Janet Gagnon, G-A-G-N-O-N, of the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles, and an email and letter enclosure from Matthew Buck, California Apartment Association, and also a copy of the CAUSE Oxnard Rent Control sign-on flyer. And I don't believe there's been any other communications. Those will all be part of the record. And Ms. Golden, are there any comments from the city manager's office on this matter?
Yes, thank you, Chair McDonald. So good evening, Chair McDonald and council committee members. Today's staff is asking that the committee conduct a study session on rent control and tenant protection strategies. As part of the study session, you are asked to consider staff reports, the staff's short and long-term recommendations, public participation this evening, as well as any ideas that each of you bring to the table. Based on this discussion, staff will either return to committee with further information on the short and long-term recommendations contained in the staff report or other ideas raised this evening, or schedule a study session on the topic before the full council. There will be no formal recommendations or decisions this evening. You'll see that there are a number of speakers this evening, so it will be important to get the feedback from all of those members and for staff to have time to dig into those a little bit further. And like I said, have further discussions either at the committee or the council. Thank you, Chair McDonald.
Thank you, Ms. Golden. Madam Clerk, with that, I have a list of 23 speakers. So let's start with the public speakers on this event and move forward. So first speaker I have is Maria Navarro, please.
Yes, Chair. Maria Navarro.
All right, can you all hear me?
Yes, Maria, thank you. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Hi, Chair McDonald, Mayor Zaragoza, and Councilmember Madrigal. First, I want to acknowledge the work that you and Oxnard staff have done in these last months. I understand that addressing housing and housing affordability through public policy is a difficult task. Having said that, Mayor and council members, you must understand that the housing crisis in which we live now was not created by one bad policy, but by decades of short-sighted and misguided policies. To fix the housing crisis, we need continued policies that have short-term and long-term results. We need long-term solutions like funding and streamlining affordable housing production, and we need economic development, and we also need short-term solutions like rent stabilization. Now, why is that? It's because we don't have a decade or two to wait for the results of these long-term policies. People need relief now. Farm workers are leaving now. In the short term, people need basic stability in their lives and neighborhoods. They need to know they can afford to keep a roof over their head by next month. Stronger rent control is the only short-term solution that will benefit the most vulnerable population in Oxnard today. Most of the studies that staff pointed to about rent control reducing housing productions were based on old models of rent control that included new apartments and that included vacancy control. Because modern rent control in California doesn't cover new apartments and includes vacancy decontrol, there is not a disincentive for developers. Even in Santa Monica, which had the most restrictive form of rent control for half of its 42-year history, less than 8% of rent-stabilized units were taken off the rental market during that time. And all the families who have moved to these rent control units, even without vacancy decontrol, have saved hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in rent increases. The reality is that Santa Monica has been overwhelmed with fast growth, coupled with stagnant creation of both for sale and rental units. And really, the discussion at hand is not about whether to create rent stabilization, since we already have it. The problem is that the state law is too weak and it doesn't make sense to Oxnard. This year, it allows 9% rent increases. Again, 9%, that's perfectly legal. If we just enforce the current state law instead of making it stronger, a landlord can raise rent by $180 on a $2,000 rent. If the biggest concern is that a small amount of the rental market will use LSAC to get out of the rental market, the best way to combat that is through an imposition of higher relocation assistance. The existing 1 month is way too low, and it serves as an incentive for a landlord to evict tenants. We need at least 3 months relocation assistance in order to discourage evictions. Not to mention that 3 months relocation assistance is barely enough to pay rental application and initial costs, like first month's rent and security deposits. We proposed 3 amendments to the to the ordinance that we're looking at, which is the Sacramento ordinance. We propose that you reduce
Thank
the
you.
rent
Your
cap to
time is
keep
up.
that, increase relocation assistance.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. I want to remind everyone, because of the amount of speakers, we need to stick very close to our allotted time limits. I apologize for that, but it's necessary for the smoothness of the meeting. Next speaker will be Judith Lucero, followed by Teresa, and then Cecilia.
Sulet?
Yes, thank you. Hi, hello. My name is Ulet. I'm an organizer with CAUS here in Oxnard. We are happy to see that the city is looking to adopt the AB 1482 and can stress how important it is. While AB 1482 is a great start, we need to strengthen in order to truly provide the protection our community needs. Today, we ask that the rent stabilization policy be amended in 3 areas. Decrease the rent cap from 5% plus inflation to just inflation. Increase displacement assistance from 1 month to 3 months. And lastly, make the policy permanent. As I have mentioned in previous meetings, many people here in Oxnard cannot pay the rent because it's too high. Wages are the same. People lost their jobs last year, but the rent continued to rise. I speak with people in the community every day. I hear their stories and their current situations. 2 farm workers that I have been working with for a year now had to move to another city because they couldn't afford their rent anymore. It is not fair that our families have to move from their hometown because they can no longer pay the rent. What is going to happen if everyone moves out? Last week, we turned in to you more than 700 signatures of people in our community who support rent control. I also know that more than 150 families have called these past few days asking for rent control with the amendments above. Hence, I am here urging you to pass a permanent rent control in Oxnard, which includes a rent cap based on inflation and relocation assistance of at least 3 months. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Teresa?
Chair McDonald, we have a few of our callers that have signed up to speak tonight. Unfortunately, they're not available. Would it be okay to call upon the ones that are waiting to speak?
Sure. You're saying that some of them are not available, so you're just going to go to the next available speaker. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair McDonald, if that's okay.
That's
Rose,
fine.
Teresa is here.
Tell me who they are.
Oh, here, Teresa is here available.
Okay, you want to go ahead and have her, put her on the mic?
Yes, she's ready.
Thank you.
Hola, buenas
Teresa?
tardes. Hola,
Go ahead. Hola.
mi nombre es Teresa. Soy campesina.
Un momentito. ¿Necesita que la transcriben?
Sí.
Un momentito.
I got 6 minutes, right?
Lourdes. Lourdes, will you be translating? Moira? Who's available to translate, please, for a public speaker? The what section?
Lourdes, I apologize, but I'm not hearing you.
No, she's already translating as it is right now. So you could
Lourdes,
begin.
We can't hear you, Lourdes.
No,
Lourdes.
she's translating.
Oh, she's, okay,
She's at work.
okay.
Give us one moment. They're working through to bring the other
It is
translator in.
it's the globe. It's the globe icon at the bottom of everyone's screen. If you pick on it, you can choose English or Spanish. If you choose English, you'll hear the translation from the Spanish speaker simultaneously. So you're not going to hear both. So if everyone can just take a moment and go ahead and make your selection, then it'll work a lot smoother. Thank you very much, Lourdes.
Mr. City Manager, can you hear me
Yes.
in English? We don't need 6 minutes. This is going to be interpreting simultaneously.
We understand. It's a great, great benefit of this technology. Thank you.
So
My pleasure.
Then it's 3 minutes then?
Yes,
Okay, thank you, Lourdes.
my pleasure.
Mhm.
¿Ya puedo hablar?
May I speak now?
Sí, por favor, tiene 3 minutos.
Yes, please. You have 3 minutes. My name is Teresa. I'm a field worker. I live in Oxnard. We as workers in the field, we do not make enough money for paying rents that are so high. Right now, I'm paying more than $2,000 a month for one small apartment. Our building is old and they don't even renew it. This is not fair to pay so much money in rent every month. Last month, we didn't have enough money for food. Usually we do buy food. That's why I'm here urging you to have a permanent rent control and also help with relocation of 3 months. Today, I'm here speaking for all of the field workers in Oxnard that have called you, and also on behalf of the 700 people that signed the petition, we want your support for rent control. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, I think we're going to Cecilia now.
Cecilia is not available, but we do have
Rose,
Adriana.
Cecilia is here. All the leaders are here.
Okay. Can you please tell me who you have available?
Yes, the people I sent you in the email. So we have Cecilia, Arturo, Lucila, Soledad, and Maria, who will be using the same from the same device.
Okay, go ahead, Cecilia.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. My name is Cecilia. I'm a field worker. I live in Oxnard. I have lived here more than 20 years. During the last few years, it's been so difficult because the rent prices have gone up a lot. Today, maybe our testimony seems repetitive to you, but this is our reality and the reality of many of those families. I am one of those that has been bringing up public comment, collecting signatures, making phone calls for rent control, and I am going to continue to request, please approve rent control till it's approved. I'm here representing 700 families that have signed and have made phone calls. All of us want permanent rent control based upon inflation, and also please give us assistance, 3 months relocation assistance, so that those working families in Oxnard have protection. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have Lucila available, or is there someone else?
Lucila is here.
Go ahead, Lucila.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. Hello. My name is Lucila. I am a field worker and I am a single mom. At this time, I live with my children in a small apartment in South Oxnard. I am also paying because of a financial crisis. I'm afraid I won't be able to pay the rent. I'm afraid I'm going to get evicted. I'm afraid I will have no place to go with my children. I have applied for so much aid, but I haven't been able to qualify. I am afraid I won't pay the rent. I will be evicted. I need a safe place for me and my family. It is so difficult for us workers, and that is why we're asking for your support with rent control, which is permanent and based upon inflation. And we need your help. We need assistance. We need 3 months to relocate. I know this would help me and would help many families in Oxnard. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. Soledad.
Soledad? Is Soledad available?
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Soledad.
Good afternoon, I'm Soledad. I'm a resident of Oxnard, and I am asking you to please, all of those people that are signing for the rent control in Oxnard, I am a community leader for costs. The rent is so high in Oxnard. My family and I live day by day. We're barely able to pay our bills. At the end of the month, because right now I'm paying $1,900 for a 2-bedroom apartment in South Oxnard. My rent just went up. It's been going up 2 to 3 times per year. And truly, right now, I'm afraid the rent's gonna go up again and I may not be able to pay it. Where are we gonna go? There are no places for us. It's so hard to find something we can afford, because sometimes they ask for a minimum 3 times our salary to get an apartment. That is why we're asking for your support with permanent rent control based upon inflation, and we would like relocation assistance of 3 months. This would help us so much and would help our working families in Oxnard. Please give us your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now have Arturo.
Hola, buenas noches. Mi nombre.
Hello, good evening. My name is Arturo. I'm an Oxnard resident. My family and I, as well as many other families here in Oxnard, have been struggling to pay the monthly rent. Rent is so high. We have to share our little apartment in order to be able to pay every month. Many of us have lost hours of work because of the pandemic. It's been so difficult to recover. It is not fair for the rents to continue to go up. That is why we're asking for you. Thank you, and we want to count on your support.
Okay, thank you very much. I now show the next speaker is Hugo.
Chair McDonald, Hugo is not available.
Okay, that will take us to Petra.
Petra is also not available.
Okay, Maria.
Maria's here and she's available.
Go ahead, please. You have 3
Hola,
minutes.
buenas noches.
Good evening. Hello. Good evening. Hello. My name is Maria. I'm a resident of Oxnard. And like many families in Oxnard, my family and I are going through a crisis. It is very difficult for us to pay the high prices of rent. That is why I'm asking you to please give us your support by having permanent rent control based upon inflation. Please give us your support with a 3-month relocation so that families can relocate. That would help so many of us. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I now show Marilu.
Mayor Pro Tem Marilu is not available.
Okay, takes us to Adriana.
Adriana? Adriana, please press *6 to unmute.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Good evening. Hello. Hello. My name is Adriana. I'm a field worker living in Oxnard. I live in one room with my family. We pay $1,050. It is the cheapest I have found at this time. Apartments are so expensive. We cannot pay rent. We need a place to live better. It is very difficult because most of our check goes to the rent. Truly, we don't even have enough money for food. Ever since the pandemic started, our work hours have been reduced. So this has created a financial crisis for my family. That's why I'm asking you for a permanent rent control so that Oxnard families can be protected. I would also like for you to help us with the relocation assistance of 3 months so we can overcome this situation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That now takes us to Nancy Lindholm, please.
Good evening. Nancy Lindholm, CEO of the West Ventura County Business Alliance, which is the Chamber of Commerce serving the communities of Oxnard and Camarillo. We urge the city to not adopt any form of rent control, but rather to adopt the covenants of Assembly Bill 1482 and to pursue alternate solutions to addressing the housing affordability gap. Rent control does not work. There are countless case studies of rent control failing in communities where such measures have been implemented. Let's be creative and pursue solutions that will benefit the residents of Oxnard today and in the future. Thank you. The West Ventura County Business Alliance stands ready to help with solutions to our housing challenges. Good evening.
Well, thank you very much. That now takes us to Mayor Berlin.
Mervelin? You may unmute by pressing *6. Mervelin?
I see her on my screen, but it doesn't sound like she's hearing us.
Mervelin, you may unmute by pressing *6.
And Madam Clerk, let's move on to the next speaker, Shara Hurd.
Yes, Chair. Share Hurd?
Yes, hi, good evening. My name is Cher Hurd, and I'm the president of the Ventura County Coastal Association of Realtors here in Ventura County. I'm representing our 2,000 members here locally, and we just want to speak up. We've always had such a great relationship with the city of Oxnard, and we appreciate that. We appreciate that we are invited to speak at meetings, we're invited to sit at the table when these conversations are happening, because of course housing is what we do, and we care about the people who are here in Ventura County, all the people in Ventura County, and we do care about their issues. So what we wanted to let the committee know is that AB 1482, which offers statewide rent control and went into effect in January of 2020, really has never even had a chance to be tried or to work, because we've had a pandemic basically almost since it went into effect. It does provide rent control and it does provide just cause. So we really feel like this is in place, as you know, until 2030. So it's not something that's going away anytime soon. It is here, and it will be something that we all are working with. There are also many other laws that we have in place. There's fair housing rules that I think a lot of our rental community and landlords alike don't always know. And it tends to be an education issue of making sure that they do know and understand what is available out there as tenants and what they're required as landlords. So we could do a lot better job, probably all of us, on the education side of things. And I think lastly, what I want to share is please continue to have these conversations. Let us be sitting at the table with the other stakeholders and the individuals involved. And we thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. That takes us to Matt Caprito.
Good evening, council members. Yes,
You have
good
3
evening.
minutes to speak.
Perfect, thank you. Good evening, Chair, council members. I'm a lifelong area resident, attended local schools in Ventura College. I'm a property owner, property manager, housing provider, and local realtor. Started my career 30 years ago with this basic premise: do the right thing for others. During this time, doing the right thing means working with tenants that can't pay some that need relief. I'm not the only one. There are countless property managers and owners doing the right thing every day. The ideas being proposed here would put me out of business. I'm just one small guy. I strongly would consider selling my properties. Some of the information provided in the staff report is unquestionably charged. It's emotional. Price gouging, illegal evictions, discrimination, substandard housing. I agree, we need to deal with the bad actors. But I want to talk about and appreciate Emilio's effort, but I need to ask a couple of questions. One, do we have measurable, reliable, consistent data that shows specific issues or concerns? Has anyone looked at the data to see what the eviction filings are citywide? That seems like relevant information. That wasn't included in the report. The city of Oxnard contracts currently with the Housing Rights Center. It's a professional housing discrimination organization. Stats from this organization would really help us all understand the data better. Sorry, no data included in the report. There's no mention of even any of this when it comes to tenants' rights. I find it questionable. What about the stats from code enforcement? That seems to be, so we could focus in on the areas of concern. That would be helpful, but not included. In all of the groundwork completed for this presentation, it appears that no local housing providers were even invited to participate. How could we understand or make recommendations based on partial community engagement? See, the issue of rent control won't make any more homes available. All this is going to do is add additional layers to the already statewide rent control. Further rent stabilization will hurt my owners that have had tenants in for multiple years at low rents. Long-term ongoing maintenance to units and upgrades will be delayed. Having separate rent control laws in all of our individual communities will be absolutely confusing for all. Tenant education, absolutely needed. Throwing all of the housing issues into one bucket and asserting that rent control based on a Sacramento model, that's just not the answer. Potentially creating another city department when it doesn't appear there's full utilization of the existing city resources is inefficient. As president of the local association of realtors here, in the past several years, we successfully worked with code enforcement. Let's create opportunities to work together and define and resolve the issues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that takes us to Ms. Janet Sprisler.
Janet Sprisler?
Yes.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, I'm Janet Sprisler here on behalf of NARPM, the National Association of Residential Property Managers, along with being a property manager for housing providers and a resident of Oxnard. I am against stronger rent control positions for housing providers. We are for education for everyone in housing. On January 1, 2019, 24 new legislation laws were enacted, more than what was ever enacted in the history of California for landlords and tenants. The one that is top of mind for tonight's discussion is the Tenant Protection Act. The Tenant Protection Act extended a rent cap and eviction controls to anywhere in the state where rent control didn't already exist. This bill is in effect for a decade. Along with that, AB 74 was passed. With this, tenants have the ability to use $20 million for legal assistance, which tenant advocacy groups should champion for those affecting eviction issues. 3 months later now, COVID hit. In the state of California, the eviction moratorium went into effect that stated no one could be evicted that was affected by COVID. With that, the rentals came to a standstill, which still remains to this day with limited rentals coming on the market. Those who are unable to pay cannot be evicted, and the state is paying back owners at 100% for those affected by COVID. This legislation also carries heavy fines for those who are illegally noticing residents to leave their rental homes. Fair housing is a right for all. Fair housing fines are set at the federal level. There are roughly 22 fair housing attorneys between Oxnard and the city of Ventura, which is the closest one to you being on A Street. Also, Ventura Housing Authority has taken into consideration current cost of living and has raised rents to match current market conditions. As for living conditions, Oxnard Code Enforcement does an excellent job when they are called upon, and they do take anonymous steps for health and safety. As for the 3-month rent, it would bankrupt housing partners out of the marketplace, reducing housing. Many of my housing providers are military homeowners that are currently deployed. Rent barely covers their mortgage. 3 months would cause them to lose their homes they planned on moving back into after serving our country. We have not seen what the Tenant Protection Act can or cannot do, which is not worthy of spending taxpayers' money on something that haven't even had a chance to get off the ground. Landlords are barely able to keep up with the moratorium legislation, let alone the Tenant Act. If you want to spend money, spend it on education for landlords and tenants. Let tenants know there are funds and legal resources for them. I implore you to let the Tenant Protection Act do its job. Let's see how it works. Keep a pulse on the community, but don't jump the gun to spend money.
30
Education
seconds.
is at this point for tenants and landlords. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Tom Katie, please.
Tom Katie.
Hi, this is Tom Katie, and I co-chair our West Ventura County Chamber Alliance Business Advocacy group, and wanted to speak to a couple of issues here. One is we're statewide adopting strategies to try and encourage additional low-cost housing to address the homeless issue, which is significant in our community. And while recognizing the challenge of the cost of rent, I think we all know the problem that we have with affordable housing across the board. And so we need to be careful that whatever action is taken does not have unintended consequences that would reduce future opportunities to either get property owners to add accessory dwellings or to get additional low-cost and very low-cost rental units. Without redevelopment, which was eliminated a few years ago, the ability to do low-income housing has to incorporate market-driven units in them as well. And my concern is if we make it to where these projects will not pencil out, then those developments will just not occur. And we cannot, the city has no tools to force anyone to build those units. So absent incentives, absent redevelopment money, we have to totally rely on the market making these projects affordable for somebody to do. So I think we should give the existing state legislation an opportunity to kick in and work and collect information from it and not create disparities between different communities in our own county and end up increasing our problem with the homeless and unaffordability. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That takes us to Max Guinness, please.
Max Guinness. You may unmute by pressing *6.
Hi, Chair McDonald, Mayor Zaragoza, Member Madrigal, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to first say that I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking on behalf of an organization. I'm also a lifelong renter. I live in Oxnard. I really just want that most evidence-based policy to improve our city. So first off, the housing crisis is very real. Cause is definitely identified, an incredibly important problem. The US Census Bureau today showed that California again has a top poverty rate in the country because of housing costs. Stanford has also done an analysis within California, and they find that 1 in 4 Oxnard residents are in poverty, one of the highest rates in the state. So I think we definitely need to address this. You've probably heard me advocate for various solutions to this, but I want to recap the evidence that shows that this policy under discussion tonight will not help, and I think it could actually worsen the situation. So I shared research by email. I'd like to sort of translate that to what we could expect if Oxnard were to tighten rent control beyond AB 1482. These are not hunches or just economic theory. They're actually backed by peer-reviewed research from institutions like Stanford, and they do study circumstances where there was vacancy decontrol. So first, it's almost tautological, but it would reduce rents for people who stay in their homes for a long time. Rent control certainly does that, but it doesn't change the overall rents. It doesn't change overall housing costs because those are dictated by supply and demand, and rent control does not change those. So what that means is someone has to pay for those discounts, and the evidence shows that that's newcomers. So landlords will set higher initial rents to compensate for lower expected rent growth due to rent control. And what this means in practice is the policy effectively forces immigrants to subsidize the rents of incumbents. So I think that's, by itself, for me, my father is an immigrant. I think this is sort of a real big problem with the policy by itself, but there are other pernicious effects that studies show as well. So people will stay in their homes longer. They'll be encouraged to do that, which pushes them into a situation where they live where they don't want to live. So they'll also commute longer, which creates more pollution, climate change, motor vehicle deaths. Housing quality would deteriorate because landlords would maintain the property less. Also, the benefits would accrue disproportionately to higher income renters because they're in more valuable property. You'd have less property tax revenue. So, I think this is not the solution to the problem we face. There are really important interventions. We have a shortage. So we have the opportunity with the housing element. I know that's pretty much done, but we could legalize fourplexes citywide. We could remove parking mandates.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. That takes us to Janet Gagnon, please.
Janet?
I'm here.
Hi, Janet. Thank you. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. My name is Janet Gagnon, and I'm with the Apartment Association of Greater Los Angeles. We've been around since 1917. We represent over 10,000 rental housing providers throughout Ventura, Los Angeles, and San Bernardino counties. And I'm here speaking on behalf of our full membership, many of whom are small mom and pop owners, people that invested in the community and their small properties are what they rely on during their retirement. Rental housing providers are small businesses, and they're the only small business during this COVID crisis that has been required to forego being paid for their services for almost 18 months now, since March of 2020. They've received little or no income because of the statewide eviction moratoriums. No other business has suffered this, not the neighborhood grocery stores or the gas stations or the hospitals. And when we're looking at AB 1482, that is the statewide rent control. The advocates are saying they need it now. It exists now. It hasn't gone into force yet because the eviction moratoriums have not been sunsetted or repealed yet. But as soon as that happens, that law will go into full force and effect, which already provides relocation money for no-fault eviction. It already provides rental caps on increases in rent. So it seems extremely premature for tenants to be coming forward and saying it's not working when it's never been allowed to work as of yet. It is also premature to jump to an enforcement mechanism at the local level when there's been no showing that there is a need for local enforcement. It certainly comes with the court systems, like for every other wrong done under a law, and it hasn't been shown to be lacking yet, again, because it hasn't even hit the streets as of yet. So we would urge this body to do study sessions on education, that many of the things identified were actually under health and safety codes and local codes that address those, as well as federal fair housing laws, and as I said, AB 1482. Once the tenants know their rights, then they can start to utilize all of the laws that already exist for them and help their situation. So I would urge a study session specifically focused on outreach and education, which can be done on a very economically efficient basis. And secondly, on building affordable housing as stated in the staff report. And I would thank you and just mention that the California Apartment Association also submitted a letter, as did we, as was recognized at the beginning, for more
Your
information.
time is up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That takes us to Barbara Macri Ortiz, please.
Barbara Macri Ortiz. Hi, Barbara. Thank you. Good evening. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Chair McDonald, Mayor Zaragoza, and Councilmember Madrigal. First, I want to thank Emilio for his report and his initiative, and also I want to thank CAUSE for their PowerPoint presentation and advocacy on behalf of the Oxnard renters. I support the Housing Director's short and long-term recommendations, except that the local Tenant Protection Act must include a serious limitation on rent increases, because increases totaling 5% plus the CPI are crushing those tenants who are actually covered under state law. All I ask you to do is strike the reference to 5% in section 5.156.050A of attachment 3. With that change, we will have a local law that works for our residents and the public health and welfare of our community. Please understand that we are in the midst of another rental housing tsunami, and we must do something to at least put up a fight. I am speaking as a housing specialist for the last 30 years in Oxnard. I have seen it all. Let me tell you about how the existing law is working, and it is working for the landlords. Right now, landlords are imposing 9% rent increases, 5% plus the CPI. So the act itself is allowing landlords to gouge tenants, especially because rents are already too high. And with the CPI running at over 4%, the act is allowing rent increases in the neighborhood of $200 a month. That's $2,400 annual increase. What kind of tenant protection is that? I am getting calls every week from good working people, families with children, seniors and the disabled who are being crushed by the weight of the law. And the only thing I can tell them is that the rent increase is legal, but it is not healthy, and it is making everybody crazy. Please do not believe the economists who blame the housing stock shortages on rent control regulations. Instead, our inability to control private investment and greed in our housing market starting in 2008 allowed the biggest ripoff of homeowners and renters I have ever witnessed. And today we are here picking up the bones of what
40
we made.
seconds.
I beg you to implement a rent control ordinance that puts a lid on rent increases above the CPI. Anything else is unsustainable for our renters, and sooner or later, they're going to be back out on the streets, and unfortunately, your headaches as council members will also be unsustainable. This is a stopgap measure that must be in place until we truly see the results of the long-term recommendations that Emilio is proposing. In short, we need to aggressively pursue both the long and the short-term strategies to survive. I would be happy to work with Emilio in formulating such an
Your
ordinance.
time is up.
Please let us start the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That takes us to our next speaker, Jorge.
Chair McDonald, Jorge is not available.
Presidente McDonald, Jorge no está disponible.
Just to make sure I understood, Craig said Jorge is not available.
That is correct, Chair McDonald.
Thank you very much. That takes us to Isabel Sanchez.
Chair McDonald, Isabel Sanchez is not available.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, pursuant to Measure M, there is no staff presentation tonight. It was made available on YouTube earlier. And Mr. Ramirez, I don't know if you have any follow-up comments based on any of the speakers' comments, but if you do, now would be the time to mention.
Thank you, Chair and council members. I don't have any follow-up comments. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And as the Assistant City Manager mentioned earlier, we are hoping that we can engage in a study session and continue that study session.
Okay, thank you very much. And this takes us to the committee deliberation. There were 3 short-term recommendations and 3 long-term recommendations. So I don't know if committee members have any comments regarding this matter. And if so, now would be the time to do it. And I'll start with Mayor Zaragoza.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you so much. And I want to thank staff for the study session. I just want to start by thanking staff, thanking CAUSE, and thanking all the speakers from the different agencies.
Mayor, can you put the mic a little bit closer to you? I'm having a little trouble hearing you. I apologize.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, my apologies. I'm going to start over again. I want to thank, the staff for this study session. I want to start by thanking staff, CAUSE, and also the other agencies and members that spoke. Mr. Chair, I have some concerns that I'd like to share with you or for the study session. The Oxnard residents express serious concerns over significant rent increases in recent years and have demanded rent control. However, rent control also exists with the 2020 Assembly Bill 1482. The Tenant Protection Act. The problem is that people are not aware of this act. And my understanding is that it's not clear and it's not easily enforced. So additionally, I believe that the value of seeking enforcement AB 1482, the Tenant Protection Act, offers opportunities to address substandard housing, wrongful evictions, illegal rents, and increases in other infractions. What I'd like to share at this time is, Mr. Chair, is that I asked for some of the clarifications from the Tenant Protection Act 1482. Of course, we know that it was effective on January of 2020, and it expires within 10 years. CAUSE had no comment on that item, but staff recommends that we follow the 10-year period. Also, the second item, it applies to rental units that were built more than 15 years ago. CAUSE had no comments on that and recommends that we follow those provisions. Third, it includes certain types of rentals, including single-family homes. Again, that was preempted by Costa-Hawkins, and staff recommends we follow those provisions that are preempted by Costa-Hawkins. Cost-just evictions, protection to tenants of more than 12 months. CAUSE had no comment on that, but staff recommends that we follow those provisions. Permits at no fault and no fault evictions. CAUSE had no comments on that. Staff recommends that we follow those provisions. Requires relocation assistance payment equal to 1 month rent for no fault evictions. Staff recommends relocation assistance payments equal to 3 months. Staff recommends a similar provision as the Tenant Protection Act, relocation payment equal to 1 month. No explicit grant enforcement authority to local governments. No comment from CAUSE. Staff recommends adoption of a local program, education and enforcement, which I think is really important. Additionally, what I'd like to share is that I would like to see or take into consideration for a study session that we look at a 12-month rent control limited to CPI only. And also that we look at more housing under Section 8 and look at the Cortez status over Colonia to find out if we get more housing. And also like to find out how many houses, affordable houses, do we have in the city of Oxnard? Additionally, Mr. Chair, I'd like to continue this study session and work with CAUSE and work with the public and work with the other agencies that spoke today, the apartment agencies, the Board of Realtors. And also the other thing is study the 3-month relocation funding consideration. Is that feasible or not? And then also the other thing is that landlords should provide written rent increases, or rent notices to individuals. Those would be my consideration, that we bring the study session back to the committee after we get a lot of input from all those individuals that I mentioned. And again, then at that time, we can study this item more so. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Madrigal, any comments?
Thank you very much, Chair McDonald. I know this has been an issue for, I guess, decades now, especially in certain parts of the city. It's an issue before probably 2019 that would come up once a year. And then, you know, as a council, we would get to work on it, get something done, you know, it was supposedly done, and then it would come right back. It's something realistically that we never really truly actually took care of. It's always as out of sight, out of mind. And, you know, this is very, very concerning because, as stated, not only by cause, but by some of the public speakers, you have in the city of Oxnard and Port Hueneme, you know, 25% or 1 out of 4 people in the city live in poverty. Paying rent is expensive. And yes, I understand the old basic concept of what many argue of, well, you know, if you can't afford it, don't live here. But when you say that, you're not taking into account what people bring into our local economy. This is a difficult thing. And yes, I get it. Many state, you know, California is expensive. If you want to live here, you know, you have to pay up. That is true. And, you know, some of the issues are high rent prices. Some of the issues, though, are pretty much hazardous conditions of living. We used to have the Safe Home, Safe Families program. But realistically, the landlords just kind of pushed over that ordinance. It was, you know, you need to read a notice if, once they went to the residents' houses, if code enforcement found anything, it was going to be on the renters. It was not going to be on the landowners or the landlords. My apologies. So, you know, it is something that, you know, we need to take into account. During the pandemic, you do see rent increases, and, you know, it's so easy for, you know, who, what, when, where, how. But at the end of the day, you know, it's no, 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 and then it's never proven. Going through and trying to get help through some of the agencies that we have, not only here locally, but throughout the state here in the county, proves to be fruitless 90% of the time. So, you know, it's something that we need to take into account. Yes, I understand, you know, over the last, you know, 2008, you know, it got mighty expensive. This became, you know, it became a way for landlords, you know, to make a good living, but it just ended up becoming a huge business for a lot of people. You have multiple families living in a home, you have multiple families living in an apartment complex to make ends meet. I understand the basic concept of supply and demand. We need to build more affordable housing, and that'll solve a lot of our problems. But what are we going to do in the meantime? So the people that are here currently now are just going to have to suffer and tough it out. I don't think that's acceptable under any circumstances. You know, I agree partially with the mayor. You know, we do need to look at, you know, removing that 5% plus inflation to just inflation. But I would look at it for a longer period of time than just 12 months. Simply put, you know, 12 months from now, we're probably gonna be the same boat that we are right now. Affordable housing is not going to be built in the next 12 months, unfortunately. You know, this policy, whatever it ends up being, needs to have some time to come to fruition. You know, it's simple to say, you know, everyone that's here on the call right now can afford a 10% increase in their rent a month. That is not true for a lot of the residents in our city and a lot of our working families in this city. So, ultimately, yes, if someone increases my rent by $400, $500, yes, it sucks, but I could afford it. That is not necessarily the case for a lot of our working families in this city. And that's something that we need to take into consideration. We look at the numbers, but sometimes, we need to look at the faces that this affects. So, I would look for something a little bit longer than the 12 months, because 12 months down the road, we're still in the same boat. I understand that this is going to take time, and I'm okay with it taking time. I think we need to get this right. And hopefully, yes, I'm not saying anything bad about the three of us, but I think it's going to take the seven of us to get something reasonable and something that is going to work, simply because I think here we're just going to end up getting kind of stuck. And when we go to the group of seven, it's going to change all over again. So, I think we need all boots on the ground on this, so we could really get something that will work for all of us. Thank you.
Chair, you're muted.
Mayor Pro Tem, you're muted.
Okay. Can you hear me now? I sound like a Verizon commercial. I want to thank staff for all their efforts on this report. This was a huge amount of information to assimilate in not a real long period of time. And then you top it off with pages and pages of letters and petitions and emails and a lot of stuff that we picked up at the last minute today. There's just a lot of information to absorb, especially going back and looking at state law prior, state law current, so on and so forth. So I think there's a lot of discussion yet to be had on this matter and this issue, and I look forward to a more robust discussion. Staff has heard all of our comments. They've heard all of the speakers' comments. I think there's a lot of work that needs yet to be done. And I would agree with Councilmember Madrigal that if we need to take a little bit of time, I would really like to see us do whatever we do it right the first time and not have to, pick up the pieces later. So, this is just a study session, so I'm not going to ask for a motion, but staff has heard all the comments, and I will go back to either Mr. Nguyen or Ms. Golden to see if you have any final comments on this matter.
I do not. City Manager, do you have further comments, or Emilio, do you have further comments?
I do not.
Okay.
If I
Thank
may,
you all. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Nguyen.
yes, I'm sorry. It does sound like the next iteration should be at the full council. I just want to make sure that's a correct understanding.
Okay, thank you very much. That will conclude this matter then. We'll move to item E on the agenda, items for future agendas. Any requests from the committee members?
No, I don't. Again, I just want to thank all the speakers today, because it's, as we mentioned before, this is a study session and it's a study session, and potentially we can work with all the stakeholders and this particular issue. And yes, we need to help our renters, because it's very, very unaffordable here in Oxnard. And most of the people that spoke today are essential workers that we need to work with. And thank you again.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any additional comments or future agenda items?
No future agenda.
Okay, thank you then. That will take us to the close of this particular committee meeting, and we will adjourn until our next regularly scheduled meeting. Thank you all for all your work, your participation. Thank you to all the speakers. You all have a safe evening.
Thank you.